right. Hello, everyone. So great to see you all here. We're excited to get going with another awesome episode of the Trippin' Thompsons podcast. And I'm Raquel Thompson, one of the co hosts.
And I'm Victor Thompson. I'm the other co-host.
All right. We're off to a great start here.
Yep.
How's your day been so far, Victor?
It's been a little bit of workout and a little bit of caffeine and a little bit of miscellaneous stuff like that. So it's off to a good start. Although I tried like doing this workout app with Tai Chi or something like that, and I don't know, it's a little bit weird, the movements and stuff. I just didn't feel like I was actually like creating strength because I wasn't using any weights. So maybe that's just a mental hurdle I have to get over. But I'll probably swap that out tomorrow. But it was good to try one time.
Well, absolutely. Try something new and, see how you feel about it. And I'm not super familiar with the practice of Tai Chi, if it's kind of the mental and the physical kind of
Hmm.
becoming one. Um, and yeah, I guess maybe just studying that a little bit more to understand. But yes, I know you would probably prefer something that is forcing you to break a sweat and helping you maybe feel it the next day like you did something.
That's it. That's
And
correct.
and using weights could help out with that.
Hmm.
So my day's been a little bit similar. So started out with taking care of the pups, all three of them, and two of them are on meds right now. One of them went off of their meds. Today was the last day, which was fantastic. Another one started on meds yesterday. She became a victim of a fractured toe, and so now on meds for 14 days, but then the healing journey is much longer than that. And so it's going to be quite the circus around here trying to contain energy and keep her calm, even though Koa is her name and her and Valentino love to play together. And so that's really disruptive to both of their days as well as us too. So anyway, we all get to be disrupted and figure out a new pathway here. And then doing some work and yes, getting some caffeine in and getting all set up and ready to go and have this great conversation today. And so we're kicking it off. We want to focus on some really fun things and focusing on networking and kind of the whole spectrum of that when you think about how do you grow your network and what are the tools and skills and understandings that I need to have around that. And then once you start growing your network, how do you maintain and sustain it in a meaningful way? And so we're going to dive in and we're going to give some really good stuff. So what do you say, Victor?
I say that's great. I mean, I've been trying to do more networking myself lately.
Yeah.
There's been needs on multiple ends of the spectrum, both um, from just a work standpoint and also from an entrepreneur standpoint. Networking can be positive, and one of the things that I fall guilty of, and I hear so many other people falling guilty of, is maintaining consistency around networking. And so, you know, that's why we put these episodes together, but a lot of times they just as helpful for us as they are for everyone else too. So, um, there are lots of really like legendary networking people, like people who really like spend a lot of time like professing to do networking. Some people that I've run across recently are Keith Ferrazzi. I guess I always known about Oprah Winfrey, but I discovered some interesting stories about her and Richard Branson. And how they really apply a lot of their strategies of building powerful networks no matter what they're networking for, what career stage you're at, um, what you're trying to do in business. They've been very good at doing those things.
They have been, and all of us can be really outstanding also. It's recognizing that networking has a purpose behind it. And as long as you're equipped with understanding that every single interaction is a networking opportunity, and within that interaction, what is it that can be mutually beneficial? Um, as far as an exchange goes, and being able to have the right tools available and resources to think about in those moments are really good. And so that's what we want to deliver for you, because we want to move it beyond just an exchange of business cards, right? And so now you've got your great collection of business cards, and like, so what? It really doesn't mean anything other than you got stacks, or you put them in some cool folder type of thing, or your LinkedIn account is building out and you've got all of these connections, and then people reach out to you and say, "Hey, can you connect me to this person? I think that they be really good for what I'm working on." And you look that person up in your own account that you're connected to, and it's like, I don't even know who that is. It
Yeah, well, that doesn't even matter for me anymore with LinkedIn because my LinkedIn account got compromised. So, like, I had like over 3,000 connections, but if you ask me to connect you to somebody in my LinkedIn network, couldn't do it anymore. But so all the more reason for me to talk about networking today, right? But anyway, I interrupted.
Yeah, and I think that that's is a really good example, because with so much happening in spaces where they can be compromised, there isn't a secure location. And for your example, and what you've discovered over these number of months now that you've been trying to navigate for LinkedIn to actually respond and help you out of this situation and get your account back up and running, so you have a presence on that platform, is that other people also have encountered this. And
Hmm.
so if you're putting all of your stock into a platform as far as your networking community, that's very vulnerable to do. And so we need to be cognizant of the fact that, you've got to become multifaceted and very dynamic in your networking approach. We're going to talk about that,
Hmm.
because we want to make sure that you're cultivating, again, when we talked earlier in the opening, is that any interaction can be a networking opportunity. But again, you want these interactions to be meaningful and mutually beneficial to the relationships. And so we want to go through the episode today and share with you kind of some of the pros in the industry. And of course, these are people that are high profile people. And why are we doing this? Is we're introducing people that most likely, um, most of this following will have a understanding about and know about these individuals, but recognize that these are practices that they have put in to their daily operation, into their leadership DNA, that help them achieve the levels and the achievements that they have done in life. And so you too have this very solid pathway. It's about a matter of applying the right tools and putting into action and putting into practice, so it becomes very natural and organic to who you are.
You are correct. Although I will say, I mean, and I want to start with Keith Farazi because I wasn't as familiar with his name. I was familiar with the book he wrote, which is called Never Eat Alone. Um, they say there's no such thing as they say there's no free lunch, right? It's like, but if you strategically work it and you build it in as a business expense, well, it can kind of like work as you know a very well um compensated lunch, let's put it that way. And his philosophy is that generosity is really the key to networking. So he doesn't he's not going in there saying, "Hey, you know what? How do I get people to, do this or do that for me?" He doesn't network for that reason. He networks to build lifelong relationships, and he does that through helping others first. It's really paramount, and as we go through and talk about some of the people that we each had opportunity to read and discover more about, what you will see is there's this thread that they reach out and they help other people. So when they network, they're not networking because, well, what can I get for myself? They're networking because they want to genuinely help other people, and or build relationships that provide support, mentorship, and opportunities for everyone involved. So that concept of generosity and putting others first is a lead point of you know networking, and why networking is really you know um, powerful when it's done well.
Sure is. And when we think about Farazi's best practices, he's really clear about, three things. And the one that he birthed his book from is the never eat alone concept, and views that every single meal is the opportunity to connect. And we discussed this is the fact that we operate in a very dynamic global society, and so it doesn't mean that you are physically having to get together with someone. It just means that you have 3 times out of your day, that you can intentionally purpose for a connection opportunity, a networking opportunity. And maybe you're doing a virtual coffee or a virtual happy hour, or you get together in person, whatever works, right? But it's about maximizing value by minimizing the impact on time, because that's one of the most precious commodities that we never get back is time. And when you think about what it takes to actually meet in person these days, it's a lot. It's a lot to ask off
Mm.
of somebody's calendar. And not to say that it doesn't have value and it doesn't have meaning, it absolutely does. But we need to also start thinking about it as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, is that also has a monetary value. And especially those of you that are running your own business, you're an entrepreneur, you're budding into a business, maybe you don't have one yet, you have ideas. You need to start putting a dollar amount to your time, because that matters. And you need to start thinking with a business mind that way. And then the second one that Farazi talks about is the give first mindset. And you were just talking about this, and the thing about it is that it's simple in how you're giving. It doesn't mean that you're giving away your time. I just talked about this. You've got to monetize your time. You've got to think like a business person. It also doesn't mean that you're giving away huge amounts of finances, unless maybe you are an angel investor, or you're looking to invest in a business and help somebody out that way, where there is an ROI on that investment. Or if you've just got this capacity to be a generous giver and it's something you want to do, that's up to you. But we're going to go into ways that you can think about, how do I give first, where it's very, very low impact on my time. It's not going to cost me anything from a financial standpoint. And it's easy to do, but it continues to help thrive this connection. And then the third thing that Farazi does that he really, really wants people to probably increase their thoughtfulness around this is about following up just on a continuous basis and putting this into practice. What he does is he keeps a very detailed CRM, client relationship management, to really foster and grow his relationships. If you've got a spreadsheet, if you've got a notebook, if you've got organized post it notes, whatever your system is, it's fine. as long as you are maintaining it on a consistent basis. It can't just be a one and done thing, right? Back to my opening comment about the number of contacts out on LinkedIn and the number of times I get contacted on a weekly basis of people saying, "Hey, I was looking at your network and can you do a introduction for me to so and so?" And it's like, I would be more than happy to, but in all honesty, I don't know this person. I don't remember where we met or how we met. I'm happy to facilitate an introduction, but I might not be your best vehicle to make that thing happen, right? And I can't possibly maintain all of my contacts in LinkedIn. There's not a way I can do that. But what I can do is I can take all those contacts and I can shortlist it down to what are maybe the top 100, 500, whatever that number might be that I need to maintain consistency with.
No, that's good. I mean, one thing I also used to do when I had my LinkedIn, and people would reach out to me and ask me to facilitate a connection, and I didn't know the person, is that okay, or I didn't remember how we met, is that it did also give me an opportunity to reconnect with that person. So sometimes I actually found some really good reconnections simply because someone else wanted to get introduced to them. So I would reach out to them first and then talk to them and explain to them that somebody wanted to get connected to them and then say, hey, we haven't talked in a long time, right? And
Mhm.
that would honestly be true because we wouldn't have. So, I mean, it can be very powerful to to be willing to maintain and nurture those relationships. And you brought up CRMs, and CRMs can also be ways to help you remember when you actually meet this person.
Yeah.
So that's another advantage to those. Um, There's another person I was going to bring up, and that's we mentioned her at the beginning, Oprah Winfrey. If you remember, like when you talk about giving first, think about like if you ever watched the Oprah Winfrey show and all, like she would give things away to the audience. There was one time she gave everyone like a car in the audience. I mean, she that
Wish I
that
was
helped
there.
facilitate her deep connections, right? And she's
Mhm.
built a whole media empire by doing this with people, and she does it authentically,
Mhm.
and that authenticity is really really important because when you are doing it because you want to do it, because you care about doing it, then it means that the person can feel your connection. And
Mhm.
there are people. I had a birthday recently, and it's funny because there's like our insurance company, right? They send you like this thing and says, "Oh yeah, happy birthday," right? It's like, okay, great. I'm giving you a lot of money, so yeah, you ought to be able to say happy birthday to me. But there's this guy. His name is Victor too, and I remember when we first met. He's like, yeah, it's like there's not a lot of us around. And every year he figures out a way to reconnect with me and say, hey, happy birthday. And it's cool because he then always wants to catch up and do coffee. And he's actually facilitated some relationships that I would never have had if if we hadn't had the same names. And
Mhm.
so um the other thing that goes along with this is that one way to practice your authenticity is to be an active listener. So that means you're listening for both what's said and what isn't said, so that you
Mhm.
can ask questions and you can really dig deep and make others feel seen. So that active listening component is really important as well, and something that Oprah practices in her daily.
Mhm. She does. It's interesting. I saw her being interviewed just yesterday, actually, and she was talking about that she's doing a podcast and it's being hosted by a certain brand coffee chain, and they hold it within their store environment. And so she's doing a live broadcast in the store environment. And so there are people now, whether they buy tickets to get in or however it works, I don't know how it works, but there are people that come into the store so that they can be in the audience and watch. And she talked about how um, being able to be an interviewer in a podcast situation helps her really connect with people more deeply, that it helps her just really be freed up to listen. She's throwing questions out there and getting the conversation going, but the ownership of the and carrier of the conversation is really the person being interviewed. And so she just talks about like that deeper connection and really being able to hear and see and experience somebody in a very different way, that for her it builds a stronger bond and connection. So I thought that was just really a
Hmm.
cool, like,
Mhm.
loop back into kind of how you were highlighting her. And there's another individual who is pretty renowned globally, Richard Branson. And my goodness, if you do not know the man, Google him. But I honestly, another person, I'd be shocked if people don't know, but there's a likelihood that there are some of you out there. He is kind of the mastermind behind the Virgin brands. There's many of them, and one of the things that his brands are known for across his portfolio of companies is that it's people first. And he really deeply cares about people, very high touch, not in a physical sense, but in a sense of, I want to connect with people. I want to communicate with you. I want to get to know you. And so he looks at it as that, if you take care of your employees, if you take care of your customers, the business will take care of itself. How freeing is that? Because in a few episodes or ago, and I think maybe a little bit on repeat, we talk about you've got to move away from working in your business to working on your business. And this is a beautiful way to think about it. Take care of your employees, take care of your customers. Again, if you're a solopreneur and you don't have employees yet, act as if you do, because they're coming. And so you already need to have the right behaviors set in place. Take care of employees, take care of customers, business takes care of itself. And he networks by building trust, and through that also building loyalty.
Hmm. Yeah, Richard Branson is a really interesting guy.
It's interesting.
And he's he spent some time, I know, from time to time he's on Shark Tank, and he is one of the people who you can tell when he's on there, he sincerely cares about every person that walks on stage. So some of the sharks like kind of banter or give him a hard time, and he'll defend the people because he feels a personal connection to what it takes for them to even just have the courage to get up in front of
Big deal.
sharks.
Yeah.
Because I know that would be it would be awesome, I think, but it would also be a little bit not scary but
Intimidating to some
intimidating.
degree.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then to be on camera and the lights and the stage, and you are the center of attention. There's a lot going on,
Mm-hmm.
especially for
There is.
people who haven't been in those environments before. That's a lot. And for somebody to have the skill, the EQ, if you don't know what that is, hit us up or Google it. But he's got the EQ to step forward and kind of help own broader space, to provide comfort to others, and recognizes that, again, that's a networking skill. You're building relationship.
Mm-hmm. Well, in doing that, in building your network, there is like a process for doing it. And so we've identified 5 steps, so we're going to try and step through them quickly so that you can understand what they are, and also give you some examples of people who execute on those things. And so the first one is about defining your purpose. So when you're about to network, you don't you want to have a purpose in mind. Stephen Covey always talks about begin with the end in mind, right? To kind of know what it is your objective is when you're walking in. And one of there's the former Xerox CEO Ursula Burns. She was actually CEO there from 2009 to 2016. She's also the first Black woman to lead a Fortune 500 company. And she didn't just climb up the corporate ladder, she actually rebuilt it for others, so that there have been lots of other Black women since her time. And when I say lots, I don't mean that we've like broken through to like amazing numbers or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that someone had to be first. And since she's done that, there have been several others who have also broken through. And when she was doing this, her networking philosophy was that simple as to understand what is the reason why I'm networking. And her philosophy was your mentor should make you uncomfortable. And what she meant by that is that she was looking for people who would challenge her and not just cheerlead for her. And that's important because that helped her create more of a cutting edge, and got her to a point where she transformed Xerox from being like a traditional copier and printer and printing business, which is what a lot of us know, or like old timers like me knew Xerox to be, into a more of a global business services provider, which was centered around digital technology. And so that expansion of how they delivered their services was really key to their survival. And networking played a major part in this. She successfully cultivated relationships across all levels, not only of the Xerox organization, but also other organizations that help her determine how should Xerox pivot in this time of need.
Hmm. And equally, thinking about Ursula's approach about, having people in your circle, or even beyond your circle, and putting that courage forward who can really push you to become the best version of yourself. And you don't even know what those limits are. And so it takes others to be involved in this process. So, viewers, listeners, it's your turn to think this through. And we've thought about it from kind of four perspectives of this audience. And that is, first of all, as an entrepreneur, the question that you can be asking is, who can push my thinking beyond comfortable limits? And I put this into practice myself recently. I'm working on a really big project. I'm actually done with the phase of the project, and I have a trusted advisor who is really pushing me to think beyond comfortable limits, and it's good for me. I don't necessarily like all of it, uh, but it's good because it helps me reflect and take it all in, and then think beyond the present moment and think about impact broader. So there'll be more to announce about that at a later date. For those of you who identify in the executive space, the question to ask yourself is, which leaders outside of my usual circles should I engage with? Really, really important, right? Because um, what happens oftentimes, especially the higher that you go into an organization, is that your circles become rather fixed. And there might be within the circle individuals that are interacting with on maybe a weekly basis, quarterly basis, annual, every couple years, whatever it might be, but there's some level of familiarity. And so it's really important to break outside of those circles and introduce new perspectives and new ways and approaches that can help foster and fuel who you are as a leader. The next group that we want to talk about is remote workers. The question to ask to yourself is, who can provide honest feedback on my visibility. So again, it's really important and it lies on you as a remote worker. You have to navigate the pathway to ensure that your visibility is still sufficient to meet the needs of what is happening within the brick and mortar space or whatever's going on for the individuals that have a natural day to day or more frequent type of engagement with one another, that they're actually seeing each other. But seek out those who can provide that honest feedback, and then think about what you want to do with that. And then the fourth group that we thought about and discussed is the emerging leaders. And this is pretty much everybody. We're all on a growth journey. And so think about the question for yourself is, who will tell me the hard truths I need to hear? And seek this out from people who maybe have been there before, have gotten somewhere that you want to get to yourself, people that maybe are speaking out and have formed maybe a brand of trustworthiness, and maybe individuals that others also seek out or listen to. But just think about who can you identify that can also provide and pour into you the hard truths that are important for you to hear.
Hmm. And so now take 30 seconds and write down your purpose statement. It can go something like, I'm networking to find blank who will blank. And, as an example, I'm networking to find successful entrepreneurs and investors who will help me identify ways to scale my business. That's what an entrepreneur might say, or what I might say. Or I'm networking to find leaders outside my organization who will push me to think outside my comfort zone. Right. So those are just a couple of examples, but I want the listener, you as a listener now, to take, 30 seconds quickly. You can pause the video, write it down, capture it now so you have action that you can take.
Awesome. And then as we're moving on, going into the second step, and this is focusing on choosing the right platforms. And an individual that is really fluid in this space is Gary Vaynerchuk. He goes by Gary V because people just can't seem to pronounce his last name. It's easier. Again, an individual who's highly visible across many different social media platforms, very outspoken, a very transparent and real individual. But why he really kind of conquers and is very effective in the social media space is that he truly engages in an authentic way. And I don't think Gary knows how to be anything but his authentic self. And sometimes it's like, wow, maybe that wasn't the environment to be that authentic, but you know what? It's really who he is. There is no filters, I think, in his world. So you get everything. But he's not just about putting content out there, just posting and that type of thing, and making it just one directional in relationship with the community. But he does reply and he'll send DMs to people so that he's forging these real connections, and that's meaningful to people. That's really meaningful when you think about, from a podcast. It's important that we're hearing from viewers and listeners, and that we reply, like we're not going to leave you hanging. And also on our social media platforms too, that we're responsive. And just think about, how do you take that additional step to help these platforms further augment your brand and give you access into broader networks that maybe you haven't been able to penetrate, you've been wanting to penetrate, but maybe necessarily aren't aware of what's waiting for you when you do start taking these actions.
Yeah, Gary V. I couldn't say his last name. It's like that's a hard one. So I get why he does that, but so like based on your role, there might be different places. I mean, there's a ton of places that you can come up with. I encourage you to research some yourself, but we did also look up a few for you just to get you jump started. So if you're an entrepreneur, for instance, there's a place called Combinator's Startup School. And it's where you can get advice from startup founders in really a school lesson format. So it's kind of like you can take one lesson at a time, and you can learn about different things around how to start up your business, and it walks you through everything single thing there is to starting up a business. There's the Founders Network, which is really geared more toward tech startups. There's Clubhouse, which is a networking app that you can use. And it can also be a replacement somewhat for LinkedIn. Anyway, that's
Hmm.
a side note. For executives, there are things like if you're a woman exec, there's a group called Chief. There's one that's known as YPO, which means Young Presidents Organization, which is targeted toward chief execs under 45. And there are also other industry roundtables and things like that that you can get involved in as executives. Since we were dealing with these other categories, remote workers, there's one called Remote OK, which is a job board for remote workers. There's another one called Nomad List, which really is like people who are like, hey, I just like to float around. I want to move to different cities. So if you want to travel and work remotely, or hybrid, these are best places for remote workers. And then for emerging leaders, there are things like the Elevate Network, which is more women's focused, the ADP List, which does free mentorships, and it's kind of tech focused. And then just Toastmasters is like this great way to learn how to get in front of people and speak, but it also is a great networking environment because so many different people from across all different industries come to Toastmasters. But you certainly can find some other ones, and you shouldn't forget about your existing network as well, because that can be really powerful also. You already have certain people who so why not reach out to them in addition to like reaching out to new people through these platforms, because they also know people as well, right? I mean, I think we're all like 6 degrees of separation from
Kevin Bacon?
from Kevin Bacon. Yeah. So
Well, okay.
yeah, you can pretty much meet anybody in the world. Maybe not Kevin Bacon. That's not my desire. But you could 6 degrees. That's right. So meet somebody who knows 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 somebody.
And then there you go. You get right to the person you want to get access to. But you got to put the actions into motion.
I was actually linked in to Barack Obama. So this sucks, actually, that I don't have my LinkedIn account. Or maybe he was a second degree, but whatever. I mean, it was like I was that close. And so, you know what? Now I'm getting a little bit upset about the LinkedIn thing. Anyway.
You know what? I would just pick up the phone and give him a call.
Who, Barack?
Yep.
I don't have his phone number, but
yeah, LinkedIn doesn't need to be the vehicle. Just pick up the phone, make the call. All right. We're going to talk about Mellody Hobson and why. Mellody is really well known for establishing a clean, crisp, and with brevity, a script for outreach attempts. And so this is step number 3 that we want to talk about. And Mellody Hobson, just for everyone's awareness, is the co-CEO of Ariel Investments, and based out of Chicago, a very, very large African-American owned and operated investment firm. Another thing about Mellody is that she has been the chairwoman for DreamWorks Animation and also for Starbucks. She has held some really, really cool positions in her career, and has really made some remarkable achievements. She also is very fluid and known for her strategic relationship building. And the approach that she takes with her is always come prepared with specific asks and offers. So this instances where you are purposely or intentionally seeking someone out to form a connection with or strike up a conversation or engage in some form of communication. This isn't the person you bump into when you're out at a sporting event or at a restaurant or shopping, and you just strike up a conversation, right? So this is with intentionality. And so she built her network by focusing on this long term reciprocity within the relationship. And the simple script goes something like this, that you greet the individual by their name or their preferred name, and you let them know that your leadership in, let's say, fundraising aligns perfectly with my work in life sciences. And I'd value 15 minutes of time to discuss angel investments and explore potential synergies. How does next Thursday at 2 p.m. work for you? That's it. So that can be sent in an email, that could be sent in a text message, that could be sent in a voicemail, that could be in a quick conversation. So we're respecting the person's time. We're being really diligent about being super clear on the specific ask and the offer there is, because within this offer, it was to explore potential synergies. Because even if you don't know that there's reciprocity within this potential engagement, you're still putting something out there to let this individual know, cool,
Mhm.
all right. So it sounds like we can kind of give and take here and have a cool exchange. And I'm curious because I want to learn more too. So keeping it just that tight, that simple. And then the action is to get that time on the calendar and be very mindful about managing that 15 minutes, right? Because sometimes we can get wrapped up in our head thinking, oh, the conversation is going longer than 15 minutes. So this might be a really good thing. It also could be that the individual who is giving you the 15 minutes of their time is just being polite and they really don't have that time on their calendar. And so the more diligent you can be about managing that time and actually leaving people wanting more out of the conversation and leave that for another conversation. Why? It gives you another opportunity to connect.
So, and you can also to, just make sure they know. It's like, so, we've been talking for 15 minutes now. So, um, you know, maybe we can set up some additional time to talk again further or something like that. And there are times when people will say, no, 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 I want to keep talking now if you have time. Right. So, there's multiple ways in which that can play itself out,
Mhm.
and you can use that same script even for in-person networking events, for instance. Especially if you see someone you're trying to connect to at an in-person event and they're about to walk out. This only takes like 10 seconds for you to walk up to them and say, I meant to connect with you, and just kind of go through that script, and see if you can get them to engage. So when you're at an in-person event, you can also do things like channeling your inner, Brene Brown or Emmanuel Ako. If you don't know who they are, you can look them up. But the thing is they authentically engage in conversations with people that they talk to on their either on their podcasts or on their other shows that they're involved in, and they ask questions like, what's the most exciting project you're working on now, or what's your biggest challenge, that you have right now? So these are thought provoking questions. But remember, when we were talking about helping people out, it also gives you insight into what are the things that they're doing and how can you give something to them? How can you help them in their situation be successful? Right?
I love that question. And it's kind of interesting because I'm just reflecting over the past, I don't know how long actually, but the number of times I get asked this question myself. And why I love it is it puts the person in a place of something that they're feeling really good about and probably have a lot of passion and energy and appreciate people even asking the question to invite the conversation because it might not even be connected to the event or the reason why we're connecting together anyway. It might be something completely unrelated, but now it gives you insight into something about this individual that maybe you didn't have access to before. So it increases your learning. It increases that relationship as far as like, wow, they really want to know me. They want to see me, right? These are things that are really important to our brains when we're connecting with people and building relationship. So I just underscored that this is a really powerful question. And so make sure you're utilizing that one, not overly utilizing it, right? So if you're talking to somebody like one time and then a month later you're reconnecting with them, they might not have a new exciting project. So make sure you're mixing up that in conversation, but a great question to apply.
Mhm.
All right, step number 4 is the follow-up framework, and this is one where we derail all the time, and we, I mean, everybody is included in this we, including me, is that the follow-up is it's tough, and we have to be mindful about this thing. And so, there's an individual, Tim Ferriss, and Tim is a he's an investor. He does a fair amount of angel investing. He's written some books, like the 4 Minute Work Week, or I'm sorry, 4 minute. That'd be amazing. Four
4 hours.
hour, 4 hour work week. The 4 hour body. He was kind of on this
Yeah,
four
that
hour
one might be in the 4 minute, actually.
hour thing. So maybe that was your thing. Maybe you needed to do your Tai Chi for like 4 hours, and
No,
then you would have had this huge breakthrough.
I don't think
We don't know. We don't know.
so.
So anyway, he's also a podcaster and he follows up with value. And we talked about this at the very beginning. Remember, you really need to think about monetizing your time. Your time is your business, and your business requires time. And so we have to be really thoughtful about not just giving our time away, believing that this is going to lead to something good, because there's easy ways that we can add value that don't require a lot of time and aren't going to cost us from a monetary standpoint. So, what Tim does after a meeting, he will send a personalized resource. And this could look like a link to an article. He could do an introduction and now help connect two people who might have similar interests or for some reason can have mutual benefit to why they're getting introduced to one another, or even a tool. So something, I'm not talking about like a toolbox and your hammer and screwdriver and your wrench and all those good things, but a tool that somebody can now apply into their business to help them along. Super simple things, but these are things that people, I know myself, when I receive things like this, I am so grateful because it expands my aperture as how I can look at things. It expands my capacity in the way of now I can incorporate this understanding, this knowledge, this capability so that I'm growing and expanding as an individual, but also my network is thriving in a great way too. Um, so an example to the follow up that Tim uses, and you can easily use this one too. Hey, great meeting you at the outstanding event. I loved your take on nuclear physicist. And here's an article that I mentioned to you. How can I support you right now? And that follow-up question is really important because what it does is it keeps that relationship alive,
Mhm.
right? It also helps kind of put it out there for that individual now to reach back out to you. Typically, they will anyway, with a thank you at minimum. But again, it helps people recognize that, wow, one, you were paying attention during the conversation. You took it seriously when we were talking and you mentioned this resource, and now you took the action to actually go through with it and send it to me. That's adding value to that
Mhm.
person.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean the resources is really key because it demonstrates the whole like help first type idea. You can ask the question certainly, what can I help you with, or how can I support you right now? But if you really like are keyed into the conversation and you have enough opportunity to find something that really could be valuable to that person, then you're actually demonstrating it without asking for it, right? I was conversing with a networking guru of sorts recently, and they have an acronym for this, which they call HOW. Like think how I can help others win. So HOW, help others win. And by offering that help, you things like sharing a resource or making introductions to other people on LinkedIn, allows us to open ourselves up to experience the law of reciprocity. And that's something which, we could get into how the brain works and all of that stuff, but it really is a key component of how we as humans operate is reciprocating for things that people do for us.
Mhm. Yeah, again, high value, high impact, and very low on the amount of time it takes you to do these things. So it's absolutely worth doing it. And then the reciprocity component of it, that when you're a contributor that way, people will also then contribute back to you um, in like ways also. And so it's a great approach to take. And then we want to talk about step 5, which is now that we've got this network, we've built it out, right? We've done the follow up, all of these great things. How do I maintain this? How do I keep it thriving? Um, we're going to go back to Oprah, who she's very known for how she maintains her network and stays in touch with people. And her approach is one that she takes very personally, and that's through handwritten notes and then also personal check-ins, right? So she's a high touch individual, and this is important to who she is as a human being, to how her brand has become known because of who she is. So it wasn't part of like a conditioning of brand that forced her into this way of operating. It was how she naturally operated that now she became known for this, which created her brand identity. And so she's networking, and it's all about for her nurturing that relationship, nurturing that friendship, right? Keeping it fed, which is really important. Um, find ways that work for you. And again, because this component is about maintaining, it needs to be a way that works for you that you can continue to do this. So if handwritten notes are not your thing and that's going to fizzle and die quickly, don't do it. Right? Maybe it's something that you do on an annual basis just to kind of mix it up, but find ways that you can maintain a process to foster and feed and fuel into your network, nurture those relationships in a way that you truly can commit.
Yeah, I mean, you can do things like set quarterly reminders or however frequently you want to reconnect with someone. You can put that on your calendar so that it's there for you. Tools like HubSpot that were mentioned earlier or any other spreadsheet can be very beneficial in helping you do those things. There was someone I knew who was a sales rep who actually was told by somebody once, it's like, well, why don't you get back in touch with me in, like, I don't know, like 152 days or something. Well, he like actually went 152 days out on his calendar, um, and scheduled a call with them 152 days later. And that was so like impressive that the person ended up like actually having a meeting with them. So follow up can be an amazing thing, and then staying consistent in that is really important. I mean, we talked about really 5 steps again, right? We talked about making sure you have a purpose when you're networking, making sure, 2, having the right platforms that you use to be networked through, having a script so that you know what key things you want to communicate, then being good at following up, and then staying consistent and maintaining those connections. So those 5 steps that will work well. Some examples of other people who also done some of these similar things and are good in all 5 steps, I might say. One of them is a woman by the name of Tracy Chow. She's the founder of something of a organization called Block Party, who when people get harassed online or something like that, they have a way to actually get out, and speak to somebody and then block them so that they can't keep harassing them. And she's a big advocate for diversity in tech, and she's built like powerful networks through just doing authentic community building and practicing these steps. So, her presence online has really been through building meaningful connections by amplifying underrepresented voices, especially in the tech space. So, you could certainly take an action step to join a community. Join like it could be a founder community, a inclusion community, whatever it might be that really resonates with you and fits with your purpose. There are things like Growth Mentor or Black Women Talk Tech. Those are all different communities that engage in conversations virtually, but also there can sometimes be people that you connect to in person because they're in your same city. And a thoughtful question you can ask in those situations or something like, what's one challenge where I could connect you with, some more helpful contacts or resources. So you reach out to them and ask them, how would you, who do they want to get connected to? You could also ask them, well, who's someone who's, changed the way you view your career, using it as a way to engage with them and understanding kind of where they have come from and where they're going to. I think you might have another example too, right?
I do. I do. I just, when you said come from and where do you go, a song started queuing up in my head, but because we don't have rights to it or licensure, I can't say it. But for those of you that know the song, you can go ahead and get your little jig on. Uh, the next leader I want to talk about is Rosalind Brewer. And Rosalind is the former CEO of Walgreens Boots Alliance. So Walgreens acquired a company called Boots Alliance, became its own entity. She also is the former CEO of Sam's Club, and she was the president and COO of Starbucks. Right, a very well decorated leader. And she built her executive network through intentional sponsorship. So I love this, right? Because now we're thinking about it in a way, in a sense of reverse engineering, because now when you have a leader who has ascended to these levels, your your networks tend to become more static. I talked about this in the very beginning. There's just really less people to really fuel into you, but you've now achieved a level and a career trail that it's your responsibility to truly give back, and that should be a big focus. And so then the sponsorship is something that she's been very intentional about. So she creates connection bridges that she calls them by introducing mentees to decision makers while ensuring that they are prepared to shine. And that preparedness needs to fall on both sides of it, right? Because not everybody is meant to be a mentor, and not all mentees are ready for a mentor relationship. And so you want to make sure that both parties are, you've kind of procured it and vetted it out pretty well before doing that introduction, and almost kind of setting up this expectation that this is how this relationship can engage and rely upon one another. Action steps that you can think about if you're in this level, and as you're even ascending in this level, as you're moving up a level, your opportunity to think about sponsorships for the next level down is really important. So start putting this into practice as soon as you can. But action steps, join executive networks, like Executive Leadership Council could be an example of that. Oftentimes within each state, there is going to be like a CEO roundtable. That could be a connection point for you. There's many others, but just go ahead and Google executive networks. You'll find a lot that you can plug into. And then the question to ask is, who in your network would benefit from knowing each other? This is pretty easy because you already know. You already know. And so go ahead and start kinda doing that matchmaking. Make sure you vet it first and that both are prepared for it, but take the action.
And I mean, I think in particular with the with the executive networking, it can serve purposes not just for your current role but also for future roles as well. So that's important. Want to talk, address remote workers because we brought them up earlier, and there's an individual by the name of Matt Mullingwig who is the CEO of Automatic. I mean, it was founded on the premise of that organization was founded on the premise of making the web a better place. And so Matt's built a fully remote empire, basically by creating WordPress forums and Slack groups, things like that. And if you look for his business, Automatic is spelled with two T's at the end because his name is Matt Automatic. That's
Clever.
he's
Yeah.
he's got the same sense of humor that I do. So anyway, things you can do in if you are a remote worker and you're trying to really plug in is you can use social media tags, things like hashtag remote work to engage in and network with other people who are also out looking for remote work or who have connections into remote working opportunities. You can also visit sites like We Work Remotely. I mean, it's three words, but they're all scrunched together, right? We Work Remotely, and it's claims to be, I think, the largest job board for remote jobs. I can't verify that, but that's what they say. And when you connect with people about remote work, one question you might want to ask is how do you stay visible, especially when you're part of a distributed team? So that
Mhm.
it's about how do I really make remote work part of my career? So
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So important, right? And then you have networks that are in the remote space with you, and then you have networks that are in more of a traditional work environment structure. And so, how do you start cross pollinating those networks? And again, help others along the journey too. So as you're learning and applying tools that are working for you, share those so that helps others along their journey. We want to talk about emerging leaders, and Shonda Rhimes is a great example here. Shonda Rhimes, for awareness, is an Emmy and Golden Globe winning. My goodness, she's a producer, a director, a screenwriter, and author. She's the CEO of Shondaland. I love it that she named it after herself. And she's very well known for many things that she has put out there for consumption. But I think a couple that have very long viewership of as far as number of years and number of people would be like Grey's Anatomy and Scandal, just to name a couple of them. And Shonda credits her success about finding mentors early. So it's not waiting until, gosh, I really need one because now I need to get from here to there. And this is what it's going to take to help me along the journey. But it's finding them even before you think you need one. And this makes me think about as like as a runner, and when you're racing or even doing the work to get prepared for races, is that you've got to stay hydrated. And how do you stay hydrated is that you're drinking water before you're thirsty. And so it's the same thing when you approach more around finding mentors. So she didn't wait, she asked for help. And the action step here is you could use, well, for a free membership, you can use something called adplist.org, adplist.org. And then a question to ask is, what's one skill I should focus on next? This is a question you'd be asking your mentor after they have a nice understanding of your background, your current status, etc. What's one skill I should focus on next? Um, Now let's transition into time investment. And we want you to think about this as far as your networking plan and how you're going to approach this from, kind of different delegations of time, whether that's day, week, or month. And this has all been inspired by the culmination of the people and the examples we've brought forward to you. So the first thing you could do is taking 15 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be consecutive minutes, right? Again, a culmination, 15 minutes a day. Engage in just one platform. Um, don't even want to say it because Victor's going to get all hot and bothered again, but LinkedIn is one of them that you
Mhm.
could go on to. Again, it's where can you network and engage in a social space. Clubhouse is another. So again, wherever you can have the interaction and connections with people, that it can be a mutually beneficial engagement that you're both helping each other out in a professional setting or circumstance. The next thing you can do is 1 hour per week. Attend one event. This can be virtual, can be in person. And again, this is something you can think about is it's like, well, this is my networking lunch. So I'm going to attend this event virtually during my lunch hour on Friday. These are easy things to do. Again, you could do the in-person ones as well, but really be thoughtful about how do I start adding value into my calendar on a weekly basis. Um, the third one out of the four is for 30 minutes a week, follow up with 5 contacts. Use the scripts that we've talked to you about, right? They're super easy. They're like 1 to 2 sentences, but it provides you the introduction. It makes really clear on the person that you're reaching out to what it is that you are seeking, the purpose and the ask, and then also what it is that you're offering up. This doesn't take long. In fact, if you're using these templates, you're just kind of copying and pasting and changing out the name. So it may not even take you 30 minutes a week. And then the final of the four is 1 hour per month. Do a deep dive with a mentor. Doesn't have to be the same mentor. So think about how are you expanding the people who are serving as mentors into you as a leader and your own development journey, because mentors can bring different perspectives, different places of experience and knowledge bases. And so be thoughtful about how do I round that out so that I am hearing multiple perspectives and then being able to incorporate kind of the best value for me. These are things you can do over coffee chats, you could do over Zoom, you could do in-person meetings. These can be the never have a meal alone, right? So however you want to approach this, but it's just 1 hour a month.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that switching up your mentors can be a really good thing as well. Just to not necessarily like not using someone anymore, but having different people who, as you were saying, you're getting points of view from and information and knowledge. So as we kind of wrap everything up here and close, homework for you, if you want to call it that, um, is first of all is to you've heard a number of different people that we've talked about today, and we invite you to pick one and the strategy that they use, or you can even find someone who you're fascinated by yourself. But I think about Farazi's give first approach, or Oprah's active listening constructs, or how Richard Branson is so loyal to the people that he meets. So find a strategy you can connect to, and then reach out to at least three people this week using the scripts, right? You can use one of the script examples that we spoke of earlier, or you can actually, develop your own as well, right? Make it short, succinct, to the point, and find out how you can help others win. So what can you do to support them, and ask them those questions. Ask the question directly, how can I support you, or listen intently and then actively engage with them so that you can identify it, so that you can help them without even asking the question itself directly.
Awesome. I know you framed it as homework, but doesn't feel like homework to me. Hopefully, this is exciting to people. Maybe for some, it's a little bit unnerving. However, when you start looking at it as it's a conversation, right? It's a connection. It's a step towards me advancing in the ways that I want to, but also kind of helping out other people along the journey. It's a great thing, right? It's not going to feel like homework. It's just going to be something that you're going to really get jazzed up to start doing. Um, and remember this, that networking, it really is a superpower. You've now got some really cool resources, a great map and plan pathway designed for you about how to approach it, how to strengthen your approach to networking. So share this episode with people that you think could really benefit from learning these concepts as well. Go back and review it or re-listen to it so that you make sure you're getting down the components that are really going to help you in the areas that maybe you need to strengthen and focus on. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, because we want to see you back and receiving more great information. But Victor, any parting words before we head out?
Well, just to know that your network is your net worth. So, go out, build it, because it's your future. See you next week.
See y'all.